Hi, and welcome back to Willie Farms Homestead. I'm Cathy, and we're certainly glad you came today. I would like to share an old family recipe called smokehouse pickles with you today. This recipe was handed down to me from my aunt, Margaret Beatles. It's a fermented pickle with a strong crunch and a sweet flavor. Everyone loves it, especially if you love sweet pickles. This is a large batch pickle, and we believe this recipe was used to store pickles for long periods of time, for an entire family, probably for a year. And they kept them, more than likely, in their smokehouse in stone crocks, which is why we think they call it smokehouse pickles. This particular recipe calls for approximately 16 pounds of cucumbers. Now you can adjust it to your family size. If you don't need as many, you can reduce it some. If you need more, you could always either add to it or make a second batch like I usually do. We do our pickles in a 5-gallon food grade bucket with a lid. We usually use the gamma lid. We like that because you can unscrew it easier than you can try to pry it off. But the first thing you have to do is take your cucumbers and wash them real good and leave them whole. Then you put them in your bucket and you mix up your brine. Wash the pickles really good. Get any dirt, any ends off of them. Make sure they're good and firm. We like to pick the smaller ones because they usually make a better crunch. If you let them get too big, then you can always cut them and make cinnamon pickles out of them. And if we have those, then I will get the recipe and we'll try to make a batch of those this year. Make sure they're good and firm and not smushed. I have gotten some that were a little bit too soft and they don't crunch up quite as good. Now that we've got all our cucumbers washed, we're going to put them all in the bucket whole. We don't cut them up yet, we wait. And then we're going to make some brine water to pour over it so that they can soak for 14 days, and that's what really gives them the real sharp crispness. So here we go. All different sizes. Some are a little bigger than others. Some are a little smaller than others. Some we may have to watch out for when we get ready to do them because I don't know what happened there, unless that was maybe it was in the refrigerator just a little too long. But they all feel good and firm. I personally do not cut the ends off because that is not, it says in my recipe not to cut the ends off. Now some people do, and that's fine if that's how they do theirs, but all I know is that this is what Aunt Margaret said, and that's what I do. And she was a really good cook, so I'm going to follow her directions. Now that we have all of our cucumbers in our 5-gallon bucket, so now we're going to make the brine. We're on city water. We really don't want the chlorine in there to affect the pickles, so we're going to use a gallon of distilled water. We're also going to use Redmond's real salt. So what we do is we take 2 cups of the salt, and we're going to put it in this container with a gallon of water. We'll stir it up, make sure it's stirred up real good, and then we're going to put an egg in there and see if it floats. When your egg floats, then you know you have the correct brine mix. So then you pour it over your cucumbers and you cover the cucumbers, and then you may have to weight it down. I always weight it down with a plate, and then you let it set for 14 days. During the 14-day period, you need to check your cucumbers. If there is some scum floating, you just rake it off and throw it away, and that does happen occasionally. I've been stirring for a few minutes now, and I think it's stirred up good, but here's the test. We're going to try it and see. Well, the egg is floating, so I guess we're good. We've got our brine, so we're going to take this out. As you can see, it's not floating in just plain water. So it does, the salt water does cause it to float. And we're going to pour this over our pickles. Okay. We did the one batch of brine. It wasn't quite enough to cover the pickles, so we're going to do another one. We've already got it mixed up and stirred up. We've already checked it to see if the egg would float. So now we're going to pour this in. We've got to have enough to cover it with. Alright, now, in order to get it down in the brine, now we're going to have to get a plate so we can weight it down. And put it down there. I gotta put something on it to weight it down. Put the water out because, as you can see, it is very full. But we need to make sure that we put I put a bowl in there to help keep it weighted down so they make sure they're all inside the water. So now let's see if this works. That's called, we just have to do it. All right, we're going to try this again. Take two, because the first time I put the lid on correctly, it spewed water all over the floor. So we're going to try it again. Turn the plate right side up, or right side up. Okay, now, there we go. Now, I don't think I've ever made them with the gamma lids on before. I think every other time it just had a straight flat lid, so I think that was what my problem was. Okay, we have accomplished step one. That is to wash the cucumbers and to fix the brine water, put them in the 5-gallon bucket, and weight them down so they stay under. So now what I do, so I don't forget, I always write on a sticky note, I'll say brine, and I'll put today's date, which is August the 17th, 24, and then I just stick it on my bucket. And in 14 days, when we start the next process, then I write down, so I make sure that I've waited 24 hours for each process, because once this starts, you have to be ready with all of your ingredients that you need. You put them in brine for 14 days, and then after that, you do a step, 24 hours, you do a step, 24 hours, you do another step, and then you just wait until they soak up all the sugary goodness. So this is how you get started with smokehouse pickles. I hope you enjoyed watching this. I hope you learned something from it, and you may do yours a little different than I do mine. But like I said, this was my aunt's recipe, and so I follow it to a T as much as possible because she was a really good cook, and so is her daughters. So thank you for watching, and God bless.